Hello and welcome to our Monday
Welcome
evening
to our
podcast.
Monday evening extravaganza.
Before we get into it, I want to mention we've still got some tickets for this time next week at the Phoenix for an evening with the two Matts.
A soirée.
Une soirée avec les deux Matts.
Les deux Matts.
Los dos Matts, if you're in Spain. If you want to come all the way from Madrid.
For our Spanish listeners.
and
Buenas noches.
The link is in the show notes, but I think it's at theneweuropean.co.uk/.
Go for it.
Two Matts live.
It's going to be a sensation.
Yeah.
That's all I can say at this point.
There'll be impressions galore.
Wisdom.
Anyway, let's talk. Let's
get back.
Let's drop some wisdom right now. So what's going on in Ukraine, Matt?
Well, I mean, everyone is talking about Ukraine. The G20 is meeting in Rio.
Yeah.
And
I was in Rio in the summer. Great place.
There you go. And I think they were probably, as were Duran Duran, of course, famously.
That's why I was there.
And so to complete the trio in Rio, the world's leaders, including Keir Starmer, the well-known Prime Minister, and others have gathered there. And at the top of the agenda is the fact that Joe Biden, the soon-to-be former president, has allowed Zelensky, finally, after much lobbying, to use the long-range missiles he gave him earlier in the year.
Yeah.
They're called ATACMS rockets, which I think is probably the best name for a missile ever.
Yeah.
And they can reach about 300 kilometers, so they can get into Russian territory. And this has gone down extremely badly with Moscow, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
But it's also gone down extremely badly with the court of President-elect Trump, who are looking forward to bringing peace to Ukraine in due course.
Because Don Jr. tweeted, didn't he? Saying,
World War III imbecilic. Now, I mean, will this particular sort of removal of restraint from the rules of engagement change the war? Probably not. But what it does do is it enables Zelensky, it doesn't escalate it, and it enables Zelensky to fight back against the 10,000 North Korean soldiers who are mostly in the region of Kursk. Yeah. And so, it
seems completely fair to me.
I think it is completely fair. And I think what perhaps Biden is doing before, in a rush before he goes, is to try working on the basis that on the day that Trump is inaugurated, January the 20th, the sort of clock starts, the countdown begins to some sort of, sadly, some sort of deal that will not necessarily be to Ukraine's advantage, to give Zelensky as much to bargain with as possible.
And it's so listeners are clear. The one bit of Russia that Ukraine has held is this area, Kursk, which is now, as you just said, about to get 10,000 North Korean troops.
Well, some of them are there, I think.
Arrive and to expel the Ukrainian forces.
Yes.
And it's absolutely vital that Zelensky can hold on to Kursk so that he can tell Putin, well, you can have Kursk back, but you've got to get your arse out of the Donbass, out of Ukrainian.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm very depressed about this, I have to say, the whole thing, because I think that I noticed Zelensky last week after his chat with Trump on the phone and, of course, Elon Musk, because that seems to be the deal at the moment. Zelensky said last week that he expected the war to end in 2025 and that the war would, quote, end sooner because of Trump being in office. Now, this is new and I think reflects it's a rather sad and poignant moment, because I think it reflects a realism on Zelensky's part that he is now coming to terms with the fact that he is going to have to, because, if Trump withdraws American aid, America's by far the biggest giver of aid to Ukraine. Basically, that's it.
Yeah.
And he has to negotiate with Putin or through proximity talks or whatever it may be. And some of the plans that are being thrown around by the Trump court are very, very hostile to Ukraine's interests. So in September, J.D. Vance, the vice president-elect now, said that the Russians would retain the land they've taken. There'll be a demilitarized zone along the current battle lines, heavy fortifications on the Ukrainian side, whatever that means, But this is the really important point. Russia would get a guarantee that Ukraine can't join NATO. So that would be an absolute three cherries victory for
on the fruit machine.
Putin. I mean, it really would.
We're very interested to know what Britain will now do, because, of course, if you believe the Ministry of Defence, we have been itching to give Zelensky permission to use this Storm Shadow cruise missile, which has got an even greater range than the ATACMS. Although I was listening to Ben Wallace today on on Radio 4, and he was saying that there's an element of the guidance system that is dependent upon US technology.
Yeah, they're often into that.
Yeah, so he said it can be used just using GPS, but as things stand, they would need American cooperation in the deployment of the Storm Shadow cruise missile, or otherwise known as Scalp in the French version of it. I prefer Scalp to Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow is a bit Marvel Comics, isn't it?
It is a bit,
Scalp is kind of...
It sounds like a bad Bond movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so... will they fall in, do you expect, with the Americans and say, OK, you can use that? And the reason I ask is, Number 10 released a statement today saying our support in Ukraine is ironclad and will continue on that basis. But as to the specifics of the support we provide, we won't get into speculation or commentary. It also remains the case that no war was ever won with one single piece of kit. I did think he ought to tell the Japanese about that, because pretty
there is
sure
a pretty good example of
brought the war to an end.
It's an extremely good point.
But providing specific details, etc., will only benefit Putin on an ongoing illegal war. But this isn't really about winning now, is it? This is about the politics of what happens after.
In Rio, Biden claimed that he was still full square behind Ukraine's sovereignty, right? Which is clearly not true. I mean, no one is, in the sense that what we've seen here, and I've said before and I'll say it again, is we always betray Ukraine. We always do.
Yeah.
That in spite of all of the Instagram yellow and blue blocks at the beginning and the excitement, what has happened is that we've given too little too late. And Zelensky has worked miracles. I mean, one of the things that I think is extraordinary is that the use of drones by the Ukrainians is now the most sophisticated in the world. And when it's over, the Western defense services can't wait to find out how they're doing it. And part of that has been an extraordinarily resourceful 3D printing of drones.
Amazing.
I mean, this is real DIY resistance. Yeah. And Tuesday will be the 1,000th day of the war.
Yeah.
And the cost that the Ukrainian people have paid has been absolutely huge in blood and treasure. And this ending, which, will involve some sort of compromise, and one hopes not just a capitulation to Putin's demands, is a very sad ending, I think, because it will resonate down the years, because Putin will settle now, and he or his successors will then continue at some point.
Do you think? Obviously, Putin will portray it as a victory.
Oh yeah,
but what has he actually won?
Well, I mean, what he's won is, I'm sure he'll win territory. There's no way he's under this sort of scenario. The Ukrainians are going to get him completely out of the Donbass. So he'll have secured Crimea, he'll have secured bits of Donbass, and crucially, I suspect, and this is the real betrayal, some sort of guarantee about NATO.
Yeah.
Now that really, we promised the Ukrainians NATO 30 years ago, and it's obviously not going to happen. And what you are seeing now, behind the sort of, it's like the Wizard of Oz curtain of tough talk, is the wheels of diplomacy getting going. And it was pointed out to me that, and I think this is a very important small detail, is that Jonathan Powell, who was Blair's chief of staff and the great negotiator of the Good Friday Agreement, and has been sort of in private practice ever since as a mediator, and has been brought into Number 10 as National Security Advisor. And the expectation, I'm told, is that he will, if and when talks begin, he'll be there.
Yeah.
Which I guess is good news, because he's an absolute supreme negotiator and a brilliant man. But that all the things are now heading towards. The variable is how much we sell out Zelensky.
Yeah. And of course, while things are fluid in as much as a membership of NATO isn't locked down and might be completely off the table. Over time, of course, so much changes, and and it's quite possible, as you've seen in Georgia, in recent years, Belarusia, obviously, very close Russian affiliation springing up, disillusionment with a Western-facing, a Western-aligned government, and a hardcore return to a Russian alliance. Yes. And so it's quite conceivable that you can see the remaking of a Soviet Union style cohesion, Absolutely. Which is exactly what Putin actually wants to happen.
Yes, and let's look at the scoreboard in the last sort of few years. Yeah. Biden pulled out from Kabul ignominiously and in the worst possible fashion, and now it looks like one of the first actions of the second Trump presidency is going to be, a capitulation of sorts to Putin on Ukraine. What message does that send to Xi in Taiwan? What message does it send to anyone, frankly? About the meaningfulness of the international order and the patience of the West. Because, I've heard Ukrainian expats say, what, if we'd known that the fatigue was going to set in so quickly in the West taken as a whole, not I think Britain is not blamed specifically or even particularly, would we have fought this hard?
Yeah.
Many people have died. Many people are walking through the cities of Ukraine with prosthetic limbs now. Yeah. What was it all for?
There must be people in Ukraine now who, I don't know how explicit you could say this, but there must be a movement in Ukraine thinking, do you know what, if it's a Russian-dominated area of our territory and they care so much about it, then is it worth the price we're paid?
But I also think that the peace with honour argument that's now gaining traction, Nixonian line, is a bit sort of over-optimistic, because if there is a peace, in inverted commas, with Putin, there will be more refugees. Yeah. There will continue to be guerrilla warfare. There will be a demilitarized zone. But I still ask the question, which none of the sort of people who've put up these peace plans seem very willing to answer, is who's in that DMZ?
Yeah.
Who provides boots on the ground?
Yeah.
Is it NATO or is it who? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because this is not. I thought the original plan was to give Zelensky what he needed for as long as it took.
It won't be NATO, will it? It'll have to be the UN.
Exactly. I mean, you can't have NATO troops.
Well, he wouldn't. I presume that
Putin would go crazy. Yeah. So I think the whole thing is going to end ignominiously, and possibly with Trump getting the Nobel Peace Prize, which is sort of nauseating on about 15 different levels.
Yeah. Because there are two forms of peace, aren't there? There's peace where people sit around a table, shake hands and walk away, never having to speak to each other again, but with an understood agreement. And then there's the meaning of the word peace, where it just means that people aren't fighting anymore.
Yes, the cessation of violence.
And that's yes, exactly. And that, I think, is the version of peace we're more likely to get to, but we'll still have.
I totally agree.
Enormous disruption.
Let's not forget that this has been going on in one form or another for at least 10 years. I mean, when 2014 he invaded Crimea.
Yeah.
And I think that this will, if it happens, this will just be a punctuation mark in his annexation of Ukraine. The West tends to move towards consensus, and the consensus will quickly be, look, we gave it our best shot, we tried to help you, but you're on your own now. No one will say that, of course. We'll continue to utter bromides about, respecting sovereignty and the international rules-based order and all that great stuff. But this is yet again another really bad sort of in the making, another really bad day for the rules-based order. Very depressing.
Okay. It is. So let's take a very quick break and come back and have a quick chat about another depressing topic, that is Allison Pearson. Okay, Allison bloody Pearson.
Britain's going Allison Pearson crazy.
Her full name is in the place she loves to be, which is at the heart of a
There
row.
is no doubt about that.
Yeah. And so to recap, what's happened is that she got a knock on Remembrance Sunday by 2 officers from the Essex Police,
Right.
saying, and this is where very quickly the
stories
facts become murky.
Yes.
Except I think we can land on some facts. But
I
anyway,
think we can too, yeah.
She says they said to her that she's being investigated for a non-crime hate incident, which is a quite bizarre concept, I find, where you've got...
Shall I read you out the definition?
Yes, please.
Right? Okay,
I'd love to
because it's a strange thing. I mean, this, just for background, the non-crime hate incident is a classic example of unintended consequences, because it came out from the Stephen Lawrence murder inquiry, which was, we better start recording, incidents of hate, and it's grown into an industry. A non-crime hate incident, to define, means an incident or alleged incident which involves or is alleged to involve an act by a person which is perceived by a person other than the subject to be motivated wholly or partly by hostility or prejudice towards persons with a particular characteristic. Now, as you say, Alison Pearson's first piece claimed that she had been tapped up for one of those.
Yes.
For a deleted tweet. And do you want to take the story on?
Well, so now it transpires.
A bit more complicated.
A lot more complicated.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you acknowledge the fact that Allison Pearson lives and breathes for bullshit like this, right? But what they've actually said, and the reason I'm confident for this, is that there's a transcript of the video cam, body cam footage, which has been sent to the press complaints body, IPSO, in complaint about this piece that Allison Pearson wrote, which says that they're investigating her for a criminal offence, potentially, an offence under the Public Order Act.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
So it's a criminal investigation, right? Now you get to the real question around it, which is, should somebody be investigated for a crime, a criminal offence, for a tweet, an ephemeral tweet, which was then deleted? But have you got the actual tweet?
Well,
that she
this is where everything we've said so far is facts of the case.
Yeah.
Right? She was not right in her original claim about it being a
non-crime
NCHI or whatever. It may, by the way, end up as such, because quite often, if there isn't a decision to prosecute, it gets recorded as an NCHI. But we'll leave that for the thing. So, The Guardian and many other newspapers have lit upon a deleted tweet. As you know, you can get hold of deleted, and people take screenshots of deleted tweets. It was a picture of 3, I think, young people of colour. She said it was the Metropolitan Police. It wasn't. It was the Greater Manchester Police. This was during all the rows about the marches around October the 7th and Gaza and so on. No.
Oh, sorry, after October the 7th.
Right. Okay. But when there was all the fuss about marches in London and so on. So that was a journalistic error and a bad one. She says, how dare, there's a picture of the police, nonetheless, posing with this group with a flag. And it's the flag of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which is a Pakistani political party. And this is important. The tweet says, how dare they? Invited to pose for a photo with lovely, peaceful British friends of Israel on Saturday, police refused. She means the Met, right? That's a factual error. Look at this lot smiling with the Jew haters, right? Now, I would imagine that the bit of the tweet that is now being chewed over by the CPS and the cops is Jew haters.
Yes.
Here's the thing, okay? I've noticed that as the story has swung back and forth, people have said, oh, well, that's obviously incitement. Well, hold on a second. That party, the Pakistani party I mentioned, is systemically anti-Semitic.
Right.
It has here is a statement recently. Pakistani Muslims will sacrifice their youth and lives, but they will not accept the filthy feet of Jews in Jerusalem. Right. Imran Khan, who is the leader of that party, has frequently attacked the, quotes, Jewish lobby and spoken of Jews having deep pockets. Now,
So they are Jew haters.
Yes, they are. Right.
But was that not an accidental stumbling upon a fact?
Possibly.
Because she didn't know who they were.
Possibly. But what I'm saying is...
Did she? Well, let me ask you, Matt. Did she not assume they were Jew haters because they were of brown skin, holding a Pakistani flag?
We're making massive assumptions about.
But the only thing we know is that she didn't know who they were.
Well, except that someone holding that flag, right, could be assumed, unless they were just holding it for.
But she doesn't know that that's that political.
Well,
party.
say that. You see, this is the thing: is that there's always an assumption, and this is why I'm. Yeah. All right, but hold on.
Yeah, okay.
This is why I'm such a sort of zealous defender of free speech, right? And be fair, I was very militant about the right of the marches to proceed when they were going on, even though I disagreed profoundly with some of the... This is why I get nervous, is because we say, oh, she wouldn't have known that.
No, I'm not saying she wouldn't have known. I'm saying the one thing we know is that she didn't know, because she didn't know who that group was. And the thing I'm saying is that the uncomfortable thing for me is that this is the reason I know she didn't know what it was that the minute it was pointed out to her on X, she deleted the tweet.
Well, she didn't know.
And if she'd have known who they were and she'd have known that they were Jew haters, she would never have deleted the tweet.
Well, hold on a second. But she'd got it wrong by saying it was the Met, whereas it was Greater Manchester Police, right?
Yeah.
You know, I just think before we assume that it's an incitement to hatred, right? Be careful, because is it? And also, is Jew hater an incitement to hatred? Because, you know, I get called, and lots of people, quite progressive people, get called Islamophobe all the time for defending Salman Rushdie or expressing doubts about murdering Charlie Hebdo cartoonists. Or, you know, saying maybe October the 7th was a bad thing, right? Where's my police visit?
Well,
right? No, but this is important because is it only accusing people of being Jew haters that's an incitement to hatred?
Well, I mean, the thing is, there has to be a complaint, doesn't it? Which is so somebody.
Right, but I mean, how risible would it be?
Yeah, totally. And I'm not saying that the police should be involved for this.
The defender, the person who the Guardian has got hold of the person who issued the complaint, right? And it wasn't one of the people in the picture.
No, it's somebody who's got it in for Allison Pearson.
Right, okay, but
the reason people have it in for Allison Pearson,
right, but the problem
is she incites this kind of nonsense.
She incites this kind of nonsense. Be careful though, because inciting this kind of nonsense is a very vague way when you're talking of describing something which actually does have clear legal definition. Now, I'm glad it's gone, because this has become such a big case. I'm glad it's gone to the CPS, right?
Yeah.
But I'm alarmed by the barely concealed glee of people who are thinking, you know, wouldn't it be great if she was prosecuted? Because I don't think that I bow to legal advice. I'd love to hear from listeners who are lawyers what they think. I don't think she has cleared the hurdle for incitement to violence. Now, maybe she has, and if so, quite right that it goes on to prosecution or caution or whatever.
That she gets her day in court, you know.
Yeah, but you see,
for clarity, before, because don't you assume for clarity that I think she should be prosecuted? I don't think she should, and as with everything with Allison Pearson, I think the best policy is just to ignore her.
Right.
But I am very uncomfortable about a police force knocking on someone's door to say someone said that they think there should be a much better definition.
Exactly. I mean, this is where we land, I think, in the end, and probably we'll agree.
Yeah.
I'm not a free speech absolutist, just to be absolutely clear. There are all sorts of constraints in the law. And if she has breached one of those laws, okay, all right. But what I don't like, I really don't think that it's, generally speaking, the job of the police to go around knocking on people's doors about these hate incidents. And this is where pattern of behaviours, people talk about Allison Pearson's pattern of behaviour. Well, there are other patterns of behaviour. So the Times last week reported that 13,200 NCHIs were recorded by 45 police forces in 12 months to June this year, and they included school children, doctors, vicars, and social workers, including a 9-year-old kid, right?
Yeah.
And a pub landlord who was investigated because he'd thrown out a couple for having sex in a loo because one was trans and it was alleged transphobia, right? Now, and for full disclosure, my friend Julie Bindel, who's a gender critical feminist, has said that 2 Metropolitan Police officers came to her door in 2019 because a transgender man had complained about one of her social media posts. And again, she wasn't allowed to know which post it was. Now, all I ask is, and slightly in the light of what's just happened in America, is this really the kind of action we want the police to be happening, right?
I find
there's an effeteness to it, which is...
It's
people do not understand what the cops, who will not look into their burglaries or domestic violence or stolen cars, are doing, going to Julie Bindel's house or a 9-year-old.
I'll tell you what I think the difference is, right? And I think, again, just to channel Marshall McLuhan again about the medium being the message. If you walk through the gates of Twitter, right, expect to be offended. Expect to read loads of stuff that you think is mad and nauseous, and expect to find it a cesspit, right? Because it is. And then don't clutch your pearls and start complaining to the cops about stuff you've read on Twitter, unless it's. So here's the difference. I was speaking to a fella I know in kicking a ball around with my kid the other day, and he said about this case, he said, but people were sent to jail for saying that the person who killed the 3 girls in Southport was Muslim. And I said, well, no, that's not what happened. They were sent to jail for saying he was Muslim. Let's go and burn a mosque down.
Exactly.
That's different.
Of course it is.
And there's another point. If Allison Pearson walked up to those people in Manchester and said, you're Jew haters, then you are creating a public order. But if you're on Twitter and you choose to be there and you choose to be violently offended by something that somebody's said, but there's actually no clear evidence that that's led to anything.
And you pose for a selfie with the cops holding a flag of a anti-Semitic party.
Right, exactly. Okay, so just accept it as part and parcel of life is my
and
view.
Also, there's a thing that, and I've been wrestling with this for a long time, and I don't have a. Well, I do have an answer to actually, but I know it's not going to go away, which is that because a lot of the people at the moment who are defending free speech are on the right, a lot of progressives are going, you just want to defend your speech. Yeah. Okay, but up until very recently, like 10 minutes ago in history, free speech was a progressive cause, from Frederick Douglass through Martin Luther King through Malcolm X. John Lewis said that free speech was the wings that carried the civil rights movement. Yeah. This is
never knowingly underquoted.
Right, but it's okay. But you see, that's the thing. It's like, I don't think people value free speech at the moment.
And I don't think people understand it, though, man. And
it's not hard.
Yes, it is. If I say, have I got the right to say anything I want? No, I don't.
Of course not.
And do I have that right anywhere on the planet? No, I don't.
No, you don't.
Then where is the line drawn?
Because, this is where I love the law, right? I'm not mocking you. I'm appreciating the rule of law is as beautiful a thing as free speech, because the rule of law is how we establish the limits to free speech in our society. What isn't useful, and this is where NCHIs are such a bloody disaster, is asking coppers to make these incredibly, which jurists should be doing, right? These distinctions, right? Okay, it's not an offence, but it might lead to, it's like pre-crime in Minority Report, right? It might lead one day to, so what do I do?
But what does the law say about this then? The law gives you comfort, because it seems that the law is
what happens as always when there's a problem is that the law spawns a code, right? And I was looking at the police code on this, and frankly, it's just a mess, because on the one hand it says, and I paraphrase, but not much, which is very important to stop people hating each other, that's very bad. But on the other hand, it's also very important to preserve free speech, because that's nice. Don't forget how useful it's come in the past, right?
Yeah.
So imagine you're just an ordinary copper,
Yeah.
right, trying to stop your local community from going up in flames on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you're presented with this fucking philosophical crisis, right? A complaint arrives into your inbox.
Yeah.
And you're expected to pass judgment on it. No, that's not the job of coppers. And I think that the idea that we should delegate social media regulation to coppers on the beat is frankly ludicrous.
I agree. We got a text today or an email from the school saying, just to flag up that at the bus stop outside the school, youths on bikes in balaclavas were trying to nick phones and purses that's frankly,
that's what we call
why
crime.
Is there not a police? If there's a policeman anywhere in the country talking to somebody about a non-crime hate incident and not stood outside that bus stop tomorrow morning, I want to know what the rationale is. Why?
No, I mean, this is such a good example of good intentions gone bad, because out of the horrors of the Stephen Lawrence case came many, many, many initiatives, of which this is one.
Yeah.
And it has turned into a kind of carnival of idiocy. And the reason, actually, it's not just because I'm, quaintly keen on the idea of free speech as a journalist. It's also because I do think that there's a real danger underpinning all of this, which is the law enforcement, the police start to look like an ass. The ordinary people who aren't, in media land.
Yeah.
This is tee-hee, Allison Pearson, tee-hee, she's finally getting, but out in the real world, it's why are the cops visiting,
This is why I think it's important to talk about this. As much as I say, honestly, I've got a very low opinion of Allison Pearson.
Yeah, but that's not
opinions. That's not the point. The point is that this incident, which, the thing we do know is that it's been manipulated by Allison Pearson to present it as a woke issue.
Yeah.
Now, and the central point to that is around this non-crime hate incident element, which she introduced. Now, it's either a crime or it's not a crime.
Correct.
If she's being quizzed by the Essex police because somebody in the Essex police sincerely believes that tweet that was deleted after a community note, deleted fairly quickly once she realised that she'd ballsed it up, has a year later got the merit and the urgency to go and
two coppers to a house,
coppers to spend a morning, so one full day's work probably for that person. But what's grievous to me is that it's allowed Allison Pearson and Richard Tice and Nigel Farage and Elon Musk to put it up there again as another reason why civilization's on the verge of collapse.
I know, but here's the problem, and actually it gets to a broader point about the problem we have ahead, right? Is liberal democracy is bloody awkward, right?
Yeah.
Liberal democracy by definition gives freedom for people that we find really noxious to say really noxious things. Now, when they breach the law, we should apply the law to the fullest possible extent. And it may be this is one of those cases, because it may be, and we don't know, that it did lead to something. I don't know. I've no idea. But we await the judgment of the CPS on that, and it's right that we do. But the problem is that this is going to, we have to become anti-fragile about this. Richard Tice and Nigel Farage and Elon Musk and Allison Pearson and Toby Young and people like that are not going to get less prominent because we're irritated.
Yeah.
We have to find arguments to push them back.
Yeah.
Most of what they say will not breach the law. And it's a counsel of despair to say, well, if we twist this ratchet on speech a bit, that'll make them go away, because every single point of evidence shows that doesn't happen.
Yeah, agreed.
The social media platforms tried. They had a huge deplatforming before Musk took over, and on Facebook, and after January the 6th, really. And it didn't make any difference at all because they all went on different networks.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a glib answer to it, but what my sort of parting shot is we all just have to be a bit careful about not cherishing free speech, because what Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida, where he is tearing through school libraries and taking down any books that are pro-gay or explain the slavery experience, or, that's the other side.
Yeah.
Don't always assume that the people cutting down on free speech will be the people you like.
No. But my passing shot on it is, I wish we weren't dealing now with a genuine story about liberal democracy and free speech that is based on one very sloppy, contentious, clickbaity journalist's fuck up on Twitter.
Right, but I'll just one final shot, right?
Go on.
Where were the fucking marches for Alexei Navalny? Right? Mm-hmm. There's someone who really absolutely encapsulates the value of free speech and free expression and dissidence, right? And when he died, I didn't see a single person in the street, right? So let's just remember that, if you don't want the focus to be on Allison Pearson, you have to make sure it's on the right people.
Yeah. No, good. Good point. Well made. Thank you. And thank you for
good chat.
Listening. Good chat. I hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah.
We'll try and find
hello, Alison.
To disagree with. Yeah. Hello, Alison.
Hello, Alison. Good evening from Moorgate.
It's spelt with a lowercase d apostrophe a.
I have to say,
C-O-N-A.
I don't often say it, but I have to say I did laugh on the news. I was just listening to the news agents tonight's episode before you arrived, and it was very funny that John Soper was saying that they invited Allison Pearson onto the show to talk about it, and she said no. And by the way, my lawyer will be listening very carefully to everything you say. So
Allison's lawyer
so
as
it's
well.
like no, so much for free speech. But anyway, there you go. That did make me laugh a lot. Right? Well done, John. John.
It is my free speech right to say that Allison's an idiot. And
I
persist in that opinion till the day I die.
Please, although another historical fact, I remember when I was a trainee at the Times and she was on the Independent and she was left wing in those days.
Was she?
Her berating me for working for the evil Murdoch press, the right wing military industrial complex.
She's been on a journey, hasn't she?
She's been on a journey.
She has. Yeah. Well, anyway, Allison, if you want to come and give us some grief in person, we're at the Phoenix a week on Monday.
Yeah,
this Monday, the 25th, whatever it is. Yeah,
you can come and call us haters.
Allison, I know you're already a subscriber, but in case you want to pass the word on, do subscribe to the New European. It's at theneweuropean.co.uk/2mats. Send in any emails and feedback, Allison's lawyer, to 2mats@tnepublishing.com. Thanks as ever to Rethink Audio, who are distancing themselves from this podcast.
They're running out the building now.
It's nothing to do with them. And their lawyers are onto us as well, personally, to say that we must never talk about Allison Pearson
it's like
again.
We'll fall down here.
Again. Thanks to Matt Hill, who's led the production tonight. And we'll see you on Friday.
On Friday.
Friday.